The night my brother slipped something into my drink. I didn't know it would be the beginning of a nightmare that would almost cost me my children. I woke up disoriented on my kitchen floor, my toddlers crying in their cribs, unsupervised for hours while he was already calling Child Protective Services to report me as an unfit mother. What he didn't count on was that, even at my lowest point, a mother's love can become an unstoppable force when her children are threatened. The system believed him at first my own flesh and blood, while I fought through the fog of whatever he'd given me, desperately trying to prove I wasn't the person he painted me to be. How far would he go to take everything I loved? Subscribe to our channel for the full story of how I survived the ultimate betrayal and fought to get my babies back. I remember their faces when they took my babies. Two women from Child Protective Services, standing in my living room with clipboards and concerned expressions, while my head still pounded from whatever was in my system. "Miss Collins, we've received a serious report about child endangerment." The older one said, eyeing the mess around us, dishes I didn't remember leaving out, an empty wine bottle I never opened. "There's been a mistake," I said, my voice slurring despite my efforts. My 3-year-old Emma clung to my leg while 5-year-old Aiden watched silently from the hallway. "My brother was here last night. He must have done something to me." They exchanged that look, the one that says classic denial. Blaming family members. "Your brother is the one who reported you, Miss Collins. He's concerned about the children's welfare." My legs nearly gave out. "James, my own brother. We'll need to place the children in temporary custody while we investigate," the younger woman said, already reaching for Emma. "My daughter's scream will haunt me forever." "Mommy." "No," her little arms outstretched as they carried her away. Aiden went quietly. That broke me even more. His resigned little face, like he was used to disappointment. "You can't do this," I begged, stumbling after them. "I'm their mother. Please, test me. I think I was drugged." "We'll arrange for testing," the older woman said without looking back. "The judge will review your case in 72 hours. I collapsed on my front steps and watched the car disappear with my whole world inside it. Later that night, my phone rang. "James." "How could you do this to me?" I whispered. "Do what? Save my niece and nephew?" His voice was so convincing, so concerned. "Melissa, you need help. I've been watching you spiral for months. When I found you passed out with the kids alone, you know what you did. I'm just glad I came by when I did." He sighed dramatically. "The kids are safe now. That's what matters." I realized then this wasn't impulsive. This was calculated. And it had only just begun. The courthouse hallway felt endless as I waited for my emergency hearing, my hands trembling so badly I could barely fill out the paperwork. 3 days without my children. 3 days of desperate calls to anyone who might help. The drug test came back positive for benzodiazepines. I hadn't taken any medication. But who would believe me? Melissa. I turned to see James walking toward me, immaculate in his charcoal suit. My brother, the successful investment advisor. The perfect father of 2. The pillar of the community. "What are you doing here?" I hissed. "Supporting you, of course." His smile never reached his eyes. "Family first. You drugged me." He placed a hand on my shoulder, leaning close enough that only I could hear. "Be careful with those accusations, Mel. Paranoid delusions won't help your case." A woman approached us, James's wife, Charlotte. Perfect, as always in her designer clothes. "The children are doing well," she said, not unkindly. "Emma asked about you." My heart cracked. "Where are they?" "Safe with us," James answered. "Where they belong." The courtroom felt suffocating. Judge Wilson barely looked at me as the CPS worker presented their report. Ms. Collins tested positive for controlled substances. The home was in disarray. The children were found unfed and distressed. "That's not true," I interjected. "I was drugged." "I would never, Ms. Collins." Judge Wilson interrupted. "Outbursts won't help your case." James testified next, his voice breaking at all the right moments. "My sister has struggled since her divorce. I've tried to help, but her behavior has become erratic. Finding her unconscious while my niece and nephew were alone. He shook his head sadly. I had to do something. When it was my turn to speak, my words tumbled out too quickly, too desperately. I saw the judge's expression harden. Given the circumstances, Judge Wilson announced, temporary custody will be granted to James and Charlotte Collins until a full investigation can be completed. No, I whispered. Please. Ms. Collins will have supervised visitation twice weekly. James nodded solemnly, the concerned brother playing his part perfectly. As we left the courtroom, he caught up with me. I'll take good care of them, Melissa. Maybe use this time to get the help you need. I stared at him, finally seeing what had always been there, the jealousy behind his concern, the cruelty behind his smile. Why are you doing this? I asked. His expression changed for just a moment, cold, calculating. Because you've always had everything handed to you, even after all your mistakes. Then the mask slipped back on. I'm only thinking of the children. As he walked away, I realized this wasn't just about the children. This was about our past, our parents, the family legacy, and whatever he thought I didn't deserve to have. James was always the golden child. Even now, at 38 and 35, the patterns hadn't changed. Growing up, my brother could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. His room was filled with trophies and awards, while I was the emotional one, the difficult one, too sensitive, too needy. Not like perfect James. When our parents died in a car accident 6 years ago, James handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the will, the division of assets. I was too overwhelmed with grief to question anything. You'll waste your inheritance, he told me when I asked about the money our parents had set aside. Let me manage it for you and the kids. After my divorce from Kevin 2 years later, James stepped in again. Just looking out for you, sis, he'd say, reviewing my finances, suggesting I sell the house, criticizing my parenting. Emma's too attached to you, he'd observe. Aiden needs more discipline. Charlotte would bring over hand-me-downs from their children, examining my home with pitying smiles. Let me help you organize this weekend, she'd offer, making me feel like a charity case. I was never enough in their eyes. But the children were different. My parents had set up trust funds for both Emma and Aiden's, substantial ones. Funds that would only be accessible through their guardian until they turned 21. And there it was. The motive I couldn't see until now. My first supervised visitation was at a sterile government building downtown. I brought the children's favorite books and snacks, my hands shaking as I waited. When they ran into the room, Emma launched herself into my arms while Aiden approached more cautiously. Mommy missed you so much, I whispered, breathing in their scents, memorizing their faces. When can we come home? Emma asked, her voice small. The social worker watched us from the corner, taking notes. Soon, baby. Mommy's working on it. Aiden stood slightly apart. Uncle James says you're sick. My heart froze. What do you mean, sweetheart? He says you need special medicine to make your brain work right. I forced myself to remain calm, aware of the social worker's gaze. My brain is fine, Aiden. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements about things. He says we might live with them forever, Emma whispered. I don't want to, Mommy. I hugged them tighter, fury building inside me. Listen to me, I said quietly. Whatever happens, whatever anyone says, remember that Mommy loves you more than anything. And I will always come for you. Always. The hour passed too quickly. As they were led away, Emma began crying, reaching back for me. Aiden just looked resigned, older than his years. I walked to my car and screamed into my hands. This was a nightmare I couldn't wake from. But one thing had become crystal clear. This wasn't just about control or some twisted revenge. This was about money. And my brother had just made a terrible miscalculation because he'd never seen me fight before. Not really. But for my children, there was nothing I wouldn't do. 3 emergency rooms turned me away. Without immediate symptoms, there's nothing we can test for, they said. Benzos metabolize quickly. The positive test from CPS proved something was there. But not who administered it. By the 4th hospital, I was desperate. Please, I begged the intake nurse. My children were taken because someone drugged me. I need documentation. She studied my face, then glanced around before leaning closer. Go to Westside Medical. Ask for Dr. Patel in toxicology. Tell her Nadine sent you. Dr. Patel was a small woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Hair follicle testing might show evidence if the exposure was significant, she explained. But it won't prove who gave it to you. It's a start, I said. She took samples, then hesitated. This situation. It sounds like someone is targeting you specifically. My brother, I admitted. He wants my children. Something flickered in her expression. I had a case last year. A woman claimed her ex-husband was putting something in her coffee. Everyone thought she was paranoid. Turns out she wasn't. For the first time in days, someone believed me. Document everything, Dr. Patel advised. Set up cameras in your home, keep a journal, and get a lawyer, not a family friend, someone with no connection to your brother. I spent my last savings on attorney Marion Blake, unlike the public defender, who barely made eye contact during my emergency hearing. She listened intently to my story. The hair follicle test is smart, she said. We also need to look at motive. Why would your brother do this? I explained about the trust funds, our parents' estate, James's controlling behavior. Financial investigations take time, she warned, and family courts move slowly. Meanwhile, your brother has the advantage of custody. So what do? We need more evidence, and we need to counter his narrative. He's painting you as unstable and neglectful. We need character witnesses, employment records, medical history, anything that shows you're a fit mother with no history of substance abuse. I left her office with a to-do list and the first flicker of hope. That evening, James called. The kids are asking when they can bring their things from your house. My grip tightened on the phone. They're not moving in with you permanently. Melissa, he sighed. Be realistic. The court sees what's best for them. A stable home, 2 parents, as opposed to their actual mother who you drugged? There you go again with these delusions. This is exactly why you need help. I bit back. My rage. Dr. Patel and Marion both warned me, never show anger. It would only reinforce his narrative. I want to see them more than twice a week, I said instead. That's not up to me. It's what the court ordered. You could request more visitation if you actually cared about their well-being. He paused. I'll think about it. After we hung up, I plugged in the small recording device Marion had given me. From now on, every interaction with James would be documented. The game had changed. He thought he was dealing with the same little sister he'd always manipulated. He had no idea what I was capable of. My second visitation was at James and Charlotte's house. Colonial on 2 manicured acres in the best school district. The kind of home I could never afford on my teaching assistant's salary. The social worker, Miss Panna, accompanied me. Remember, no discussions about the case with the children, she warned as we walked up the brick pathway. Charlotte opened the door with a practiced smile. The children are so excited to see you. The playroom was a showcase of expensive toys. Emma ran to me immediately, but Aiden lingered by the window, pushing a toy car back and forth. Hey, buddy, I said, approaching slowly. I've missed you. He didn't look up. Are you better now? My chest tightened. I was never sick, Aiden. Miss Penna cleared her throat in warning. I changed tactics. How's school? Are you making friends here? Uncle James says I can join soccer if I live here. He says you couldn't afford it. Each word was a dagger. There are lots of things we can do together when you come home. He corrected. If we come home? Emma tugged my hand. Mommy, I don't like my new room. It's too big and has scary shadows. I pulled her close, breathing in her baby shampoo scent. Tell me about the shadows, sweetie. They move at night. Aunt Charlotte says I'm being dramatic. Charlotte entered with a tray of organic snacks. Emma has an active imagination, she said lightly. We're working on that. My daughter stiffened beside me. What do you mean, working on that? I asked. James feels the children need more structure. Fewer flights of fancy, more practical skills. She arranged the snacks on a small table, Emma's been having nightmares. The therapist suggests limiting stimulation before bedtime. Therapist? What therapist? Miss Pena interjected. The court appointed one for the children's adjustment period. This was the first I'd heard of it. I want to speak with this therapist, I said. That's not your decision right now, Charlotte replied, her smile never wavering. I spent the rest of our hour reading to Emma while Aiden gradually moved closer, until he was leaning against my knee. When it was time to leave, Emma clung to. Please take me home, she whispered. Soon, baby, I promised. Though my heart was breaking, Aiden hugged me stiffly. As I turned to go, he pressed something into my hand, a folded piece of paper dot in the car. I carefully unfolded it. A crayon, drawing of a stick figure man with angry eyes standing over a bed with a small figure in it. Uncle was written in wobbly letters above the man dot. My blood turned to ice. I showed Miss Pena. Something's wrong. Aiden never draws like this. She studied it, frowning. Children often express anxiety through art during family transitions. This isn't anxiety, this is fear. Ms. Collins, I understand you're concerned, but without specific allegations, he's in there with my children every night while I'm fighting just to prove I deserve to be their mother. Her expression softened slightly. I'll make a note of this. That's all I can do right now. That night, I called Marion and told her about the drawing, the therapist, Aiden's behavior. Can we use this? I asked. It's concerning but not conclusive, she said. We need more. Have you spoken with your children's teachers from before? Not yet. Do it tomorrow. We need to establish a behavioral baseline show that these changes started after placement with your brother. I hung up and stared at Aiden's drawing. Whatever James was doing, it was affecting my son deeply. And I was running out of time to... Stop it, Miss. Winters had been Aiden's kindergarten teacher for 8 months before everything fell apart. She welcomed me into her classroom after school, concern evident in her eyes. I was shocked when I heard, she said. Aiden always came to school clean, prepared, happy. You were one of our most involved parents. His uncle claims otherwise. She frowned. Mr. Collins? He only came to one conference, seemed more interested in Aiden's trust fund than his progress. I froze. He asked about the trust fund? Yes, he wanted to know if the school had received the documentation about him being a secondary trustee. She tilted her head. I assumed you knew. I didn't. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Emma's preschool teacher shared similar observations. Emma talked about you constantly, the stories you read, the games you played. Children from neglectful homes don't do that. Armed with written statements from both teachers, I met Marion at a small cafe far from James's part of town. This helps establish your parenting baseline, she said, reviewing the documents. But we need more about James. Any history of controlling behavior with others? I thought about it. His ex-girlfriend, Rebecca. They dated before Charlotte, maybe? 7 years ago, he was intense about her. Find her, Marion instructed. And we need to look deeper into those trust funds. Finding Rebecca took 3 days of social media searching. When I finally called her, there was a long silence after. I explained who I was. I never thought he'd do this to his own family, she finally said. Do what? Control, manipulate, make you doubt yourself. Her voice hardened. He convinced my friends I was unstable after I broke up with him. Lost me a job opportunity. I had to move to get away from him. Did he ever ... I hesitated. Did he ever drug you? Another pause. I can't prove it. But there was a night I only had 1 drink at dinner. I woke up the next day unable to remember anything. He said I'd embarrassed myself, acted crazy, but something felt wrong. My hands trembled as I wrote down her statement. The financial investigation was moving slowly. Marion hired a forensic accountant to trace the children's trust fund activity, but the courts would need to grant access to most records. The preliminary hearing was approaching, but we still didn't have enough. Then I remembered James's password habits, always variations on the same theme. I tried logging into his cloud storage using his standard formula, and I was in among vacation. Photos and work documents were folders labeled with my children's names. Inside, I found something chilling screenshots of research on benzodiazepines, effects, dosages, detection times, and a folder titled Custody Strategy with detailed notes on how to document my erratic behavior. I called Marion immediately. "This is exactly what we need," she said after I forwarded everything. "But we can't use it in court." "Unauthorized access. Then what good is it? Now we know what to look for." And where she paused. "There's something else. The accountant found unusual transfers from your parents. Estate to James's personal accounts, beginning right after their death. He told me most of the estate went to taxes. We're still tracing it, but it appears at least $300,000 is unaccounted. For money that should have been split between you." I sat in stunned silence, understanding blooming like a poisonous flower. This wasn't just about the children's trusts. This was about what James had already taken and what he feared he'd lose if I ever discovered it. "He's been stealing from me for years," I whispered, "and now he needs the children's trust to cover his tracks." Marion finished, the betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible, but it also gave me strength. This wasn't just about saving my children now. It was about justice. The preliminary hearing was 3 days away when Miss Pena called me. "I've been replaced as your caseworker," she said, her voice hushed. "Why? Officially, case redistribution. Unofficially?" I filed too many concerns about your brother's home. My pulse quickened. What concerns? "I can't discuss specifics, but the children's behavior has changed dramatically. I suggested they be placed in neutral foster care until the hearing, and my supervisor overruled me. Your brother apparently has connections in the department." After we hung up, I paced my empty house, panic rising. If James had influence, even within CPS, what chance did I have? That night, my doorbell rang. A woman stood on my porch, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I'm Charlotte's sister, Diane," she said. "We need to talk." I hesitated, then let her in. "Charlotte called me crying last night," Diane began. "She's scared of James, but won't leave because of the children." "My children," I corrected. "She says he's obsessed with them. Controls everything, their food, activities, who they talk to. He checks Charlotte's phone, times her errands." She leaned forward. "And he's got them on medication they don't need." The room seemed to tilt. "What medication?" "Something to help them sleep. Charlotte found the prescription. It's in his name, not theirs. That's illegal." She took photos. Diane slid a phone across the table. "She's afraid to leave herself, but she can't watch what he's doing to those kids." The photos showed prescription bottles of a strong sedative, labeled for James but with handwritten instructions for A and E on sticky notes. "He's drugging my children," I whispered, horror and rage building inside me. "There's more," Diane said. Charlotte overheard him on the phone discussing moving money from accounts with children's names. Something about offshore transfers. I called Marion immediately. She arrived within 20 minutes, questioning Diane carefully and documenting everything. "Will Charlotte testify?" Marion asked. Diane shook her head. "She's too afraid. James has threatened to ruin her if she ever leaves, financially, legally, everything." "Without her testimony, these photos alone won't be enough," Marion explained. "But they give us grounds to request emergency drug testing for the children. We filed the emergency motion the next morning. By afternoon, it was denied. The judge cited insufficient evidence and concern about traumatizing the children with unnecessary testing. Marion said, frustration evident. So he can drug my children, but testing them is too traumatic? Welcome to family court, she said grimly. But we have another option. The plan was dangerous. During my next visitation, I would collect hair samples from both children while seeming to just be an affectionate mother. We'd have them tested privately. It won't be admissible, Marion warned, but it might convince the judge to order official testing. My hands shook as I prepared for the visit. If James suspected anything, he could revoke even my limited access. The children seemed listless when I arrived at James's house. Emma's eyes were slightly unfocused, Aiden's movements sluggish. "Are you feeling okay, sweetie?" I asked Emma as I stroked her hair, carefully palming a few strands. "Uncle James gives us special vitamins at night," she mumbled. "They make me feel funny." I hugged Aiden, my fingers gently collecting hair from the nape of his neck. "Do you take these vitamins too?" He nodded against my shoulder. "They make the bad dreams go away." My new caseworker, Mr. Fletcher, watched impassively from the corner. Unlike Miss Panna, he seemed uninterested in the children's welfare. As I was leaving, Charlotte appeared briefly in the hallway. Our eyes met, and I saw the fear in hers and something else. Resolved. The next day, as I waited anxiously for the hair test results, I received an unmarked envelope. Inside was a USB drive with a handwritten note. "From C security footage from home office. Be careful." The video showed James at his desk, carefully dividing pills into smaller doses and placing them in what looked like vitamin containers. I called Marion. "We have proof." The hair samples confirmed our worst fears. Both children tested positive for the same benzodiazepine found in my system months earlier. The video from Charlotte showed clear evidence of James administering unprescribed medication to my children. "This is criminal," Marion said, reviewing everything. "We need to go to the police." Detective Ramirez listened carefully to our evidence. Unlike the family court, the criminal system required a lower threshold to investigate. "We'll execute a search warrant," he promised. Unauthorized administration of controlled substances to minors is a felony. For the first time in months, I felt hope until James somehow got wind of the investigation. My phone rang at midnight. "What have you done?" His voice was ice cold. "What you did to me, you're doing to my children," I replied, recording as Marion had instructed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with, Melissa." The pretense of the concerned brother was gone. "By the time I'm finished, you'll never see those kids again." "Is that a threat?" "It's reality. Check your email." The message contained a video clearly edited showing me appearing to hit Emma during a tantrum last year. I remembered that day. She'd fallen, I'd reached to help her up. The edited footage told a different story. "Where did you get this?" "Our nanny cam. I've been collecting evidence for longer than you know." His voice was smug. "How do you think this will play in family court? Or the media?" After he hung up, I called Marion in a panic. "It's a desperate move," she assured me. "Digital forensics can prove it's manipulated. More importantly, it shows consciousness of guilt." He's feeling cornered. The next morning, police executed the search warrant at James's house. They found the sedatives, the disguised containers, and financial documents showing transfers from the children's trust to James's personal accounts. James was arrested for child endangerment, financial exploitation, and drug charges. But my relief was short-lived. The family court judge still refused to return my children, instead placing them in emergency foster care until the criminal matters are resolved. "How is foster care better than being with me?" I demanded in the judge's chambers. "Ms. Collins, these are serious allegations on both sides," Judge Wilson replied. "Your brother has presented concerning evidence about your parenting, fabricated evidence. That remains to be determined. Until then, the children's safety is my primary concern." I was granted increased visitation, 3 supervised visits per week at the foster home. The children were confused, traumatized by the police raid and their second removal. "Why can't we just go home with you?" Emma cried during my first visit. "Soon," I promised, hoping it was true. Aiden remained withdrawn, speaking little. "When?" The foster mother stepped out briefly. He whispered, "Uncle James said if I told anyone about the vitamins, they'd take us away from everyone forever." "That's not true, sweetheart. You did the right thing telling me." His eyes filled with tears, "But they did take us away." How could I explain the broken system to a 5-year-old when I barely understood it myself? Charlotte filed for divorce the day after James's arrest, providing a formal statement about his controlling behavior and the children's medication. With her testimony and the evidence from the search warrant, the prosecutor was confident about the criminal case. But criminal proceedings take time, Marion warned. And family court moves on its own timeline. A court-appointed psychologist was assigned to evaluate both the children and me. Dr. Reynolds spent hours interviewing us, reviewing records, and observing our interactions. Your children show signs of psychological manipulation, she told me after her assessment, particularly your son. He's been told repeatedly that certain behaviors or statements would result in permanent separation from both you and his uncle. Can you help them? I've recommended specialized therapy for both children, and I'll be submitting my full report to the court, documenting the emotional harm caused by your brother's actions. It was another piece of the puzzle, another expert on our side. But James had resources, 2 expensive lawyers, character witnesses from his social circle, and that doctored video he still threatened to release. The walls were closing in around him, but James wasn't finished fighting. And neither was I. The lowest point came 3 weeks after James's arrest. I'd been fighting so hard, gathering evidence, attending hearings, meeting with experts, that I hadn't noticed the toll it was taking. I sat alone in my empty house, surrounded by case files and children's drawings, when the weight of it all finally crushed me. My babies had been gone for nearly 4 months. 4 months of their lives I could never get back. The phone rang. James's attorney. My client is willing to offer a settlement. What kind of settlement? I asked, exhaustion seeping into my voice. He'll withdraw all allegations if you drop the criminal charges and agree to joint custody. I laughed bitterly. He drugged me. He drugged my children. He stole their trust funds. And he thinks I'll agree to joint custody? Ms. Collins' family. Court cases can drag on for years. Your children will remain in foster care during that time. Is that what you want? The question struck like a physical blow. Tell your client he'll face justice for what he's done, I said before hanging up. But after the call, doubt crept in. What if this battle never ended? What if the system continued failing my children? What if fighting actually hurt them more? I called Emma and Aiden's court-appointed therapist, Dr. Winters. The foster placement is stable but temporary, she confirmed. Both children are showing signs of attachment disruption and anxiety. Would it be better for them if I stopped fighting, accepted some kind of shared arrangement? Her response was immediate. Absolutely not. Your brother engaged in dangerous, manipulative behavior that harmed these children. They need protection from him, not exposure. But they need stability now. They've been in limbo for months, and returning them to a known abuser won't provide stability. It will cause more trauma. Her voice softened. I know this is agonizing, but you're doing the right thing. Still, that night was my darkest. I found myself staring at the bottle of sleeping pills my doctor had prescribed, wondering if everyone would be better off without me fighting this impossible battle. I'd failed to protect my children, failed to see James's true nature until it was too late. What kind of mother was I? My hand closed around the bottle. So easy to just sleep and not wake up to this nightmare. My phone chimed with a text. The foster mother. Emma asked me to send you this before bed. The photo showed a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Tall one labeled Mommy and 2 smaller ones labeled Me and Auden. Above them in wobbly letters, We love you. The pill bottle slipped from my fingers. What was I thinking? My children needed me not just to fight for them, but to be there when the fight was over. To help them heal. To love them. I called the crisis hotline listed on my therapist card. Talked for hours with a counselor who helped me see through the fog of despair. The next morning, I made an emergency appointment with my own therapist. What you're experiencing is trauma, she explained. The system that should protect you and your children has become another source of harm. I almost gave up last night, I admitted, but you didn't. That's not giving up, that's reaching the edge and choosing to step back. She leaned forward. Melissa, surviving isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to ask for help. That afternoon, I attended my first support group for parents navigating the family court system. Around the table sat others like me, battle-worn, exhausted, but still fighting for their children. For the first time in months, I didn't feel alone. These strangers understood my pain, my frustration, my fears in ways even Marion couldn't. My ex-husband manipulated the system for 3 years, one woman shared. But last month, my daughters came home for good. Hope, that's what they gave me. And hope was what I needed to keep going. Marion called with unexpected news. Charlotte wants to meet off the record, no attorneys present. We chose a quiet cafe, 2 towns over. Charlotte looked thinner, older, her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. I'm filing for divorce, she said without preamble. And I'm prepared to testify about everything James has done. Why now? She twisted. Her wedding ring. I knew he was controlling, obsessive about the children, but I told myself he just wanted what was best for them. Her voice broke. When I found out he was drugging them, I can't be part of this anymore. Why didn't you come forward sooner? Fear. James has everything in his name, the house, cars, accounts. He threatened to leave me with nothing if I ever betrayed him. She pushed a folder across the table. But I've been documenting everything for months. The folder contained bank statements showing transfers from the children's trust, photos of James's medication logs, and a journal detailing his behavior. He's been obsessed with your children since they were born, Charlotte continued. When your parents died, he talked about finally having influence over them. I thought he just wanted to be a good uncle. He stole their inheritance, and mine. She nodded. I found transfers dating back 6 years, small amounts at first, then larger sums after you divorced Kevin. Her eyes met mine. I'm ashamed I didn't see it sooner, or maybe I didn't want to see it. What changed? Aiden had a nightmare one night. James went to comfort him, but I heard him telling your son that his bad dreams were because he missed his uncle, not you. She shuddered. It was so calculated, so manipulative. That's when I started paying attention. The criminal investigation was proceeding, but James had been released on bail with a restraining order keeping him away from the children. His financial crimes were being investigated separately by the SEC. He still has resources, Charlotte warned. Friends in the system, money hidden away, and he's furious about losing control. I'm not afraid of him anymore. You should be. James doesn't lose gracefully. She hesitated. There's something else. He has plans to leave the country if things go badly. Costa Rica. No extradition for financial crimes. I brought this information to Detective Ramirez, who immediately requested James's passport be surrendered. The judge agreed, further restricting James's movements. With Charlotte's testimony secured for both the criminal and family court cases, we pushed for an expedited custody hearing. Dr. Reynolds' psychological evaluation strongly recommended the children be returned to me immediately. The ongoing separation is causing significant emotional harm, she testified. These children need to return to their primary attachment figure, their mother. For the first time, Judge Wilson seemed to be listening. Given the new evidence and expert recommendations, I'm inclined to grant temporary custody to Ms. Collins pending the final hearing. James's attorney objected vehemently, but the tide had turned. After 4 months and 17 days, my children were coming home. The foster mother helped pack their few belongings. They've been talking about going home all morning, she said kindly. They never settled here because they always believed they'd be back with you. Emma ran into my arms the moment she saw me. Aiden approached more cautiously, but when I knelt to his level, he pressed his face into my shoulder. For real this time, he whispered. We're really going home. For real, I promised. And no one's going to take you away again. That first night back in our house, I tucked them into their own beds, read their favorite stories, and watched them fall asleep. The healing had only just begun. Both children still needed therapy, still had nightmares, still feared being taken away again. But they were home, and as I sat between their rooms, listening to their peaceful breathing, I felt something I hadn't in months, hope that we might be okay after all. What I didn't know was that James had one final, desperate move to make. The children had been home for 2 weeks when the threatening texts began. Enjoy them while you can. You think you've won? I made you. I can destroy you. Each came from different burner numbers. I reported them to Detective Ramirez, who confirmed they were violations of the restraining order, but struggled to prove James was behind them. Change your locks, get a security system, he advised. Document everything. I did more than that. I installed cameras, created safety plans with the children's schools, and never let them out of my sight. The constant vigilance was exhausting, but I'd learned the hard way what James was capable of. Marion filed motions to freeze all remaining trust assets and requested a full accounting of everything James had managed. The financial investigation revealed he'd embezzled over $400,000 from my parents' estate and nearly $180,000 from the children's trusts. He was using the money for risky investments, the forensic accountant explained. When those failed, he needed more to cover his losses. The children were making progress in therapy. Dr. Winters worked with them 3 times weekly, helping them process their confusion and fear. Aiden has started talking about what happened at his uncle's house, she told me. The vitamins? The conversations where James would tell him you didn't want them anymore. He said that. My hands clenched. It's classic alienation trying to break the bond between you and your children. Fortunately, they're young enough that the attachment damage can be repaired. Emma was more openly emotional, having tantrums followed by periods of clinginess. She'd wake crying, afraid James would take her away again. Will Uncle James go to jail? She asked one night as I tucked her in. The police are making sure he can't hurt anyone again, I answered carefully. He said the police would take you away. Not him. I smoothed her hair. He told you that to scare you, sweetheart, but it wasn't true. The final custody hearing was scheduled for the following month. With Charlotte's testimony, the psychological evaluations, and the criminal charges, Marion was confident the judge would grant me full custody. James's credibility is destroyed, she assured me. Even his character witnesses have withdrawn their support. I was beginning to believe we might actually get through this when I received a call from Aiden's school. Someone tried to pick up. Aiden claiming to be his uncle, the principal explained. We followed your security protocol and kept him in the office. The man left when we said we were calling the police. My blood ran cold. Is Aiden okay? Shaken but safe. We've called the police, and they're reviewing our security footage. I rushed to the school where Aiden sat pale and quiet in the nurse's office. He said you were hurt, Aiden whispered when I gathered him in my arms. He said I needed to go, with him to the hospital. The security footage clearly James wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, but still recognizable. He'd violated the restraining order, attempted to remove Aiden from school under false pretenses, and fled when confronted. An arrest warrant was issued immediately. Officers went to James's apartment, but he was gone. His car was found abandoned at a bus station. We've issued an alert for all transportation hubs, Detective Ramirez told me. He won't get far. But James had planned this. Charlotte discovered he'd emptied their joint account days earlier and had a fake ID made. Somehow, despite surrendering his passport, he'd managed to cross into Canada before the alert went out. We're working with Canadian authorities, Ramirez sighed, but he had a significant head start. That night, I moved the children's mattresses into my bedroom. As they slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, wondering when this nightmare would truly end. My phone pinged with a final text. You'll never be free of me. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say to the brother who had tried to destroy my life. Instead, I focused on the soft breathing of my children, safe beside me despite everything he'd done. James might have escaped for now, but he'd lost what he truly wanted: control over my children and their inheritance, and I gained something unexpected through this ordeal: unshakable certainty in my strength as a mother. 6 months passed with James still evading authorities. The children and I fell into a new routine: school, therapy, homework, playdates with carefully vetted families. We moved to a secure apartment building with restricted access. I changed our last name legally, using my grandmother's maiden name. Life gained a fragile normalcy. The custody case concluded with me receiving full legal and physical custody. The judge ordered any recovered trust funds to be placed under court supervision until the children reached adulthood. Is it really over? I asked Marion after the final hearing. The legal battle is, she confirmed. The emotional one takes longer. She was right. Though the children were healing, the trauma lingered. Aiden still struggled with trust, questioning whether people meant what they said. Emma had separation anxiety, panicking if I was out of sight at school or parks. I found my own support and therapy in the parents group I joined during my darkest days. Many of them became friends, understanding what others couldn't about. The invisible scars left by family court battles. Then came the call from Detective Ramirez. We've located your brother. My heart raced. Where? Vancouver. Canadian authorities arrested him yesterday attempting to board a flight to Thailand. Is he being extradited? The process has begun. It could take weeks, but he will face charges. Here. I should have felt relief, but instead felt numb. James had already taken so much, not just money, but innocence and security. Our childhoods, our shared history, even our parents' memory had been poisoned by his betrayal. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Charlotte, who had moved across the country after the divorce, stood at my door looking nervous. I wanted you to hear it from me, she said once seated in my living room. James contacted me from detention in Canada. What did he want? To make a deal. He claims to have access to offshore accounts where he hid some of the trust money. He's willing to return it in exchange for your support at sentencing? I laughed bitterly. He's still trying to manipulate everyone. I told him no, Charlotte said firmly. But there's something else. He's been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. His attorney will use it as a mitigating factor. Does that change anything for you? I asked Dot. She considered this. It explains things, but doesn't excuse them. I spent 5 years walking on eggshells, doubting my perceptions, making myself smaller to accommodate his need for control. Her eyes met mine. A diagnosis doesn't undo that damage. After she left, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, thinking about James's diagnosis. Had there been signs in childhood? Our parents had always indulged his need to be the center of attention, praised his ambition, overlooked his lack of empathy. How different might our lives have been if they'd recognized the darkness growing? In him, the children were spending the weekend with Kevin, their father. Though we had divorced years earlier, the custody battle had unexpectedly repaired some of our broken relationship. He testified on my behalf, confirmed James's controlling behavior during our marriage, and stepped up his involvement with the children since their return. Whatever happened between us, he'd said, you're an amazing mother. Those kids are lucky to have you fighting for them. Coming from the man who once called me overly emotional and difficult during our divorce, the words meant something. My phone rang. Kevin. Everything okay? I asked immediately. Fine, he assured me. The kids are asleep. I just ... He paused. I wanted to check on you after hearing about James. I'm processing it. You know, when all this started, I didn't believe you about him drugging you. I thought it was another drama. His voice softened. I'm sorry for that. I should have known you'd never make something like that up. We all believed the version of James he wanted us to see. Still, I failed you and the kids when you needed support. After we hung up, I realized something important. Through this nightmare, I'd learned who truly stood by me, and it wasn't always who I expected. Former friends had disappeared, unable to handle the messy reality of what we were going through. But others had emerged as unexpected allies. From Charlotte to Diane to the parents in my support group, James had tried to isolate me, just as he isolated me from friends during my marriage. But in fighting him, I'd built a stronger community than I'd ever had before. That night, for the first time in nearly a year, I slept without checking the locks twice, without waking to every small sound. The monster of my story was finally contained. James's extradition took 3 months. I avoided news coverage, focusing instead on rebuilding our lives, a new part-time job at Emma's preschool, weekend trips to the beach, movie nights where we built pillow forts in the living room. But reality crashed back when Marion called. The prosecutor wants you to testify at James's trial. The thought of facing my brother in court made my stomach churn. Do I have to? Your testimony would strengthen the case, especially regarding the drugging incidents. But it's ultimately your choice. I discussed it with my therapist, who helped me weigh the trauma of confronting James against the potential closure of speaking my truth. Either choice is valid, she assured me. What matters is what will help you heal. After much reflection, I decided to testify. Not just for myself, but for the children who were too young to speak for themselves in court. I'll do it, I told Marian, but I have conditions. I want a victim impact statement about how his actions affected the children, not just me. The trial date was set for March, almost 18 months after that first night when I woke on the kitchen floor. As it approached, I prepared the children for more changes. The bad thing Uncle James did? He's going to have a kind of grown-up. Time out, I explained. Will he ever come back? Aiden asked, his face serious. No, sweetheart, he can't hurt us anymore. Emma frowned. But he's still your brother. Leave it to a 4-year-old to identify the heart of my pain. Yes, he is. But sometimes, even family members make choices that mean we can't be around them. Like, when I hit Aiden and get a timeout? She asked. Sort of, but much bigger. Uncle James made choices that hurt people very badly. Aiden considered this. Daddy says Uncle James is sick in his brain. I chose my words carefully. He has something that makes it hard for him to care about other people's feelings, but that doesn't excuse what he did. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. Old nightmares returned, James taking the children, the system failing us, waking disoriented and drugged. Dawn found me on the balcony, watching the city wake up. You can do this, I whispered to myself. You survived everything else. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lighting. Charlotte was already there, sitting stiffly in a navy suit. We exchanged nods. Then James entered in handcuffs, escorted by officers. He'd lost weight. His designer clothes were replaced by a court-issued suit. But his eyes were the same, calculating, observing, seeking weakness. When those eyes found mine, I expected to feel fear. Instead, I felt nothing. The brother I'd once loved, once feared, now seemed smaller somehow, diminished. The proceedings began with opening statements. The prosecutor detailed the calculated campaign of manipulation and abuse aimed at gaining control of substantial trust funds. James's attorney spoke of mental illness and childhood trauma, painting him as a man who lost his moral compass due to psychiatric issues. Charlotte testified first, describing James's controlling behavior, the medication she discovered, his obsession with the children's trust funds. She spoke clearly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Then it was my turn. As I took the stand and swore to tell the truth, James stared at me with a slight smile, his final attempt at intimidation. But I was beyond his reach now. With a steady voice, I began my testimony, determined to ensure that everyone in that courtroom understood exactly what he had done to me and my children. Ms. Collins, please tell the court what happened the night of September 15th. The prosecutor prompted. I described the evening in detail, James offering to help with the children. The strange taste of the tea he insisted I try, waking disoriented on the kitchen floor with my children crying. What happened after Child Protective Services became involved? I recounted the hellish months that followed the emergency hearing, James's manipulation of the system, the children's declining emotional state in his care. His attorney objected, repeatedly trying to exclude my speculative statements about James's intentions. But the judge allowed most of my testimony. During cross-examination, James's attorney tried a different approach. Ms. Collins, isn't it true that you've struggled with depression since your divorce? I sought therapy after my divorce. Yes. And you were prescribed antidepressants? Briefly. I discontinued them months before these events. Could your memory of that night be affected by your mental health issues? The prosecutor objected and the judge sustained it, but the implication hung in the air. Ms. Collins, the defense continued, your brother stepped in repeatedly to help you during difficult times. Isn't it possible you misinterpreted his concern as something sinister? I leaned toward the microphone. His concern included drugging me, drugging my children, stealing their inheritance, and systematically trying to destroy my relationship with them. That's not misinterpretation. That's fact. The defense had no further questions. My victim impact statement was the hardest part. I prepared it carefully, focusing not on my pain, but on what James had stolen from Emma and Aiden. My children still have nightmares, I said, looking directly at the jury. My son checks the locks 3 times before he can sleep. My daughter panics when I'm out of sight. They've lost their sense of safety, their trust in family, and their childhood innocence. I turned to face James. They've also lost their uncle, the person who should have protected them, cherished them, supported them through life. Instead, he used them as pawns in a game of control and greed. James maintained his impassive expression, but I saw the muscle in his jaw tighten. Whatever sentence this court imposes, my children and I are already serving a life sentence of trauma. The difference is, we're innocent. As I returned to my seat, Detective Ramirez nodded slightly. Later, he stopped me in the hallway. That was powerful testimony, he said. You should know we found additional evidence on James's devices. Detailed research on how to alienate children from their primary caregiver, financial records showing where some of the missing money went. Will it be enough? In my experience, cases like this often end in plea deals. His attorney has approached. The prosecutor, true to prediction, 3 days later, James accepted a plea agreement 15 years for multiple felony counts of child endangerment, financial exploitation of a minor, assault, and fraud. The judge addressed him at sentencing. Mr. Collins, you systematically abused your position of trust to harm the most vulnerable children placed in your care. This court finds your actions particularly reprehensible given your relationship to the victims. James spoke only once. I was trying to protect them, he said, his voice hollow. No, the judge responded firmly. You were trying to control them. There's a profound difference. As they led him away, James looked back once. I expected to see anger, perhaps resentment. Instead, his eyes held something unexpected confusion. As if he truly couldn't understand why his actions were wrong. In that moment, I realized he would never comprehend the damage he caused. His mind simply didn't work that way. The brother I thought I knew had never really existed. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, hungry for statements. I declined interviews, wanting to protect the children from more public exposure. But as I walked to my car, a woman approached older with kind eyes and a hesitant smile. You don't know me, she said quietly. But I was married to James before. Charlotte, what you did today, thank you. Some of us never got justice. She slipped away before I could respond, but her words stayed with me. How many others had James manipulated over the years? How many had suffered in silence, their stories untold? The scale of his destruction was greater than I'd imagined. 1 year after James's sentencing, the children and I moved to a small coastal town 3 hours from the city. I found work teaching at the local elementary school, and we settled into a cottage with a fenced yard and a view of the ocean. The healing continued slowly. Emma, now 5, had fewer nightmares, but still needed reassurance that doors were locked. At night, Aiden, 7, was making friends but struggled with trust. Questioning everyone's motives. Dr. Winters connected us with a therapist in our new town, who specialized in childhood trauma. They're resilient, she assured me during our monthly video calls. With consistent support, children can overcome extraordinary challenges. I needed to believe her. Some days were easier than others. The financial aftermath of James's crimes was complex. The court-appointed trustee recovered about 60% of the children's stolen funds. The rest had vanished into failed investments or offshore accounts James refused to disclose. It's enough, Marion assured me during her visit to our new home. With proper management, it will still provide for their education. The money was never what mattered, I replied, watching the children build sandcastles on the beach below our deck. Having them safe, that's everything. Marion studied me over her coffee. You've changed. Trauma does that. No, it's more than that. These single quotes read stronger, more certain. Perhaps she was right. The woman I'd been before, eager to please, afraid of conflict, doubting her instincts, had been burned away by necessity. In her place stood someone who knew exactly what she was capable of surviving. I'd received letters from other women after the trial, partners and family members of people with narcissistic personalities who recognized James's patterns. Many had lost children, homes, reputations to similar manipulations. Some were still fighting their battles in family courts across the country. Their stories haunted me. The system that had eventually worked for me failed so many others without resources, without Charlotte's testimony, without the dramatic evidence of drugging. I began volunteering with a family court advocacy group, sharing my experience to help. Others navigate the bewildering legal maze. Twice monthly, I spoke with parents fighting their own versions of my nightmare. Document everything. I tell them, trust your instincts. Find allies who believe you. It wasn't enough, but it was something transforming my pain into purpose. Charlotte visited occasionally, forming a cautious relationship with the children. She'd moved across the country, changed careers from interior design to social work, and was slowly rebuilding her life. I have nightmares too, she confided during one visit. Not about James exactly, but about who I became with him, that passive, frightened person who looked the other way. You did the right thing in the end, I reminded her. That's what matters. My parents' estate was finally settled, revealing the full extent of James's deception. He'd systematically diverted funds for years, hiding transfers through a web of accounts, forging my signature on documents, manipulating financial statements. The trustee recovered a painting that should have come to me, a small Wyeth watercolor our grandmother had left specifically for me. James had sold it to a collector in Boston, who reluctantly returned it after legal proceedings. I hung it in our living room, a bittersweet reminder of family connections that should have been cherished, rather than exploited. Kevin remained part of our lives, more involved as a father than he'd been during our marriage. He'd remarried, and his wife welcomed the children warmly during their monthly weekends together. I should have seen what James was doing, he said during one custody exchange. The way he undermined you, isolated you. I just thought it was normal sibling rivalry. We all missed it, I said. He was very good at hiding his true nature. That was the hardest lesson, recognizing that predators rarely appear monstrous. They wear familiar faces, speak with trusted voices, and exploit the very connections that should protect us. James would be in prison until the children were adults. I'd requested no contact, a restriction the court upheld given the nature of his crimes. Still, I knew someday they might have questions only he could answer. Will we ever see Uncle James again? Aiden asked one evening as we walked along the shore. Not for a very long time, I answered truthfully. And only if you want to when you're older. He considered this, tossing stones into the waves. I don't think I want to. That's okay too. Is he still family? The question pierced me. Biology makes him family, I said carefully. But family is really about who loves you, protects you, and puts your needs first. Aiden nodded, seemingly satisfied. Like us, and Dad and Laura and Grandma June. June was my mother's sister, who had reconnected with us after James's trial. She believed his lies for years, but now spent holidays with us, trying to make amends. Exactly, I said, watching Emma chase gulls along the shoreline. Family is what we build, not just what we're born into. 3 years after James's sentencing, an unexpected letter arrived from the correctional facility. I recognized his handwriting immediately, the precise, controlled script that once signed birthday cards and family holiday notes. I left it unopened on my desk for days, unsure whether to read it or burn it. Finally, during a session with my therapist, I made my decision. I need to know what he has to say, I explained, not for forgiveness, but for closure. She nodded. Just remember whatever is in that letter reflects him, not you. That evening, after the children were asleep, I opened it. Melissa, the prison psychiatrist suggests writing to those I've harmed as part of my treatment. I've resisted until now, believing my actions were justified. I'm still not convinced they weren't. I've had 3 years to consider our family dynamics. Our parents always favored you. The sensitive one, the artistic one, the one who needed protection. I was expected to achieve, to succeed, to be perfect without recognition. When they died, I saw an opportunity to finally control the narrative. Your children, their grandchildren represented a legacy I believed I deserved to shape. The trust funds were meant to be under my management. I was more qualified, more responsible. The methods I used were extreme. I acknowledge that now. But my intention was to provide the stability you couldn't. Your chaotic lifestyle, emotional nature, and poor choices in partners made you an inadequate guardian. I still believe the children would have benefited from my guidance. My mistake was in how I attempted to secure it. The doctors here have diagnosed conditions I don't fully accept. They claim I lack empathy, that my perception of events is distorted. Perhaps they're right. I find myself unable to feel the remorse they insist should be there. I don't expect your forgiveness or understanding. This letter fulfills a treatment requirement, nothing more. James, no apology. No real acknowledgement of the harm he caused. Just more justification, more narcissism, more delusion. Yet strangely, the letter brought relief. It confirmed what I already knew. James was incapable of genuine remorse or empathy. His worldview was so fundamentally distorted that even years of incarceration and therapy couldn't penetrate it. I burned the letter that night, watching the flames consume his words. They held no power over me anymore. The next morning, I received an unexpected call from Detective Ramirez. I thought you should know we've identified 3 other potential victims of your brother's manipulation. Other women he drugged. 1? Former girlfriend, yes. Also a business partner and an elderly neighbor whose property he was managing. Same pattern: sedatives, gaslighting, financial exploitation. Are they pressing charges? The statute of limitations has expired for some allegations, but their testimonies will ensure he serves his full sentence without parole consideration. More lives damaged by James's calculated cruelty. The scope of his destruction continued to expand ripples in a toxic pond. That evening, I received another call from James's prison psychiatrist, Dr. Levine. Mr. Collins authorized me to speak with you, she explained. I wanted you to understand the nature of his condition. His letter made it pretty clear. Narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial features is complex, she said. The lack of empathy isn't a choice. It's a fundamental absence in his psychological makeup. Does that excuse what he did? Not at all. It explains but doesn't justify. I'm calling because you should know he'll likely never acknowledge the true impact of his actions. For your own healing, waiting for that recognition will only prolong your pain. I stopped waiting a long time ago, I assured her. After we hung up, I sat on the porch watching the children ride bikes in the driveway, their laughter carrying on the sea breeze. Emma had recently lost her first tooth and was showing it to anyone who would look. Aiden had made the community soccer team, his confidence growing with each practice. They were healing, thriving despite everything they'd endured. Their resilience humbled me daily. I would never tell them about James's letter or his diagnosis. That information served no purpose in their young lives. Someday, when they were older, they could decide how much they wanted to know about the uncle who had tried to steal their childhood. For now, our focus remained firmly on building the present, a life rich with genuine love, consistent support, and the secure knowledge that they were safe, valued, and cherished exactly as they were. The ghost of what James had done would always haunt the edges of our family story. But it would not define us. We had survived his worst, and in surviving, discovered our best. 5 years after that night in my kitchen, I sat in a courtroom one final time. The hearing was procedural, the formal termination of James's parental rights and legal connections to the children. He didn't contest a dot as I signed the last documents. I felt a weight lift. The legal entanglements that had kept us tethered to James were finally severe. Outside. Spring sunshine warmed my face. I was 39 now with strands of gray. Didn't bother coloring. The children waited at school, unaware of this last bureaucratic ending. To them, this story had concluded years ago. Emma, now 9, had blossomed into a confident young artist who filled her home with vibrant paintings. Her therapist had suggested art as an outlet for processing trauma, and she'd embraced it fully. The shadows that once frightened her now appeared in her. Work transformed into mysterious forests and magical creatures. Aiden at 11 was thoughtful and protective, with a quiet strength that reminded me of how much he'd overcome. His trust issues had evolved into a remarkable intuition about people's character. "I can tell when someone's wearing a mask," he once explained, like Uncle James did. We still lived in our coastal town, now firmly established in the community. I'd been promoted to lead teacher, then curriculum coordinator. The advocacy work continued, expanding into workshops for family court judges and social workers about detecting manipulation and psychological abuse. Life wasn't perfect. The children still had moments of anxiety, triggers that transported them back to those dark months. I still woke sometimes from nightmares where they were taken again. But these episodes grew less frequent, less intense with each passing year. My support group of fellow survivors had become chosen family. We celebrated holidays together, helped with home renovations, watched each other's children. The bonds forged in shared trauma proved remarkably durable. Charlotte had remarried to a kind woman who taught at the university where Charlotte now studied social work. They visited every summer, bringing their rescue dog who delighted the children. Kevin and his wife had a daughter now, the children's half-sister whom they adored. The co-parenting relationship we built from the ashes of our marriage was, perhaps, the most unexpected positive outcome of this journey. I'd even found love again. Cautiously, with David, a widowed marine biologist who approached relationships with the same careful deliberation I did. The children accepted him gradually, on their own terms, his patients earning their trust. On the 5th anniversary of James's sentencing, I received a call from Marion, who had remained a friend long. After our professional relationship ended, "I have news," she said. "James had a stroke in prison. He's paralyzed on his right side with cognitive impairments." I waited for some emotional response, satisfaction, perhaps, or pity. None came. "I hope he's receiving proper care," I said finally. "The prison has a medical facility. Charlotte's been notified as his only family contact." Only family contact. The words underscored the reality of what happened. I was no longer his sister in any meaningful sense. Biology had been overruled by his actions and my choice to protect myself and my children. That evening, we had a small gathering at our beach house. David, the children, a few close friends. As twilight softened the sky, Emma brought out the memory boxes she created in therapy, one for each year since the bad time, as she called it. "I think we should bury these," she announced. "Make a time capsule by the big driftwood." We watched as the children dug a hole in the sand, carefully waterproofed the boxes, and covered them with stones in a small ceremony of their own design. "Will we forget what happened?" Aiden asked as we walked back to the house. "Not forget," I said, choosing my words carefully, "but we get to decide how much space those memories take up in our lives." Later, alone on the deck with David, I watched the moonlight shimmer across the water. "You're quiet tonight," he observed, just reflecting. 5 years ago, I wasn't sure we'd survive, let alone thrive. He took my hand. "You did more than survive. You transformed." Perhaps that was the true ending to our story, not just survival, but transformation. From victim to advocate, from broken to rebuilt, from isolated to connected. James had tried to destroy me by targeting what I loved most. Instead, he'd inadvertently revealed my greatest strength, the fierce, unstoppable love of a mother determined to protect her children. The moon cast our shadows across the weathered deck, long, strong, unbroken. In the house behind us, the children slept peacefully in rooms with unlocked doors and open windows, secure in the knowledge that they were safe. We had reclaimed our story, and in that reclamation, found something James could never understand or possess: genuine peace. If you've been through family court trauma or know someone fighting a similar battle, you're not alone. Subscribe to our channel for more survival stories and resources. Leave a comment with the words "I survived," so others know they're not fighting alone.